So Al, I think what I want to talk about next is really the Sony showcase
Mm.
and really the news
Yeah.
and a general conversation about Sony's approach to things this generation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll just kind of run through, I think, some of the snippets of news that have happened over the weeks and to a point, months.
Mm-hmm.
So there's obviously a new revision of the PS5.
Yeah.
People have been speculating whether it will cause heat issues, performance issues, and I think it's been proved conclusively there's absolutely no difference whatsoever. I think Digital Foundry and Cayman's Nexus collaborated on this, and I think it's really safe to go and get your PS5 if you can find one. The new revision isn't going to make any kind of difference to neither the necessarily the heat output nor the
I don't
performance.
know. I think there was a slight difference, but from a performance perspective and how should I say, throttling kind of perspective, none of that was seen. And they did stuff like, what was it? Put it into a non a very kind of airflow restricted kind of area. So they kind of pushed it a little bit to its limits.
Yeah, I think any changes are completely negligible, if you know what I mean. 1 or 2 degrees either way, completely negligible. Even if it was 1 or 2 frames either way,
Mm-hmm.
completely negligible. But the fact of the range, they couldn't see any kind of problem. Both revisions seem to run identically. Maybe there's subtle changes of the heat output. But other than that, it's the same experience that the end user
Mm.
gets. So, not an issue.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And I just think, it's just time to move on. I mean, in previous generations, new
Yeah,
revisions of a console, it just isn't news, if you
yeah,
know
but
what I mean.
it's just interesting why Sony must have done their own testing, right? What they should have done is
They're
just
collecting data on
yeah,
us, yeah.
but they should have just come out straight away and said this was their test data, and they said they observed this, right? Rather than being completely radio silent, people noticing that something's changed and then trying to do a bit of digging themselves. It's a strange one. It's one of those that maybe there's a lesson to be learned, but.
I don't think Sony have learned any kind of lesson. I think Sony are basically doing what they're doing, that, and it's very true to the current form. They're just radio silent.
Yeah.
They're collecting data on us or anybody who's using that PS5.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for a fact they're a very reporting MI/BI centric organization.
Mm-hmm.
That much I do know. So it wouldn't surprise me if some of these decisions are just based on the numbers they're seeing.
Yeah.
And the other kind of interesting fact is that I think this was during the Digital Foundry and Games Nexus collaboration video.
Mm.
They were saying that when a piece of hardware like this gets put together, it's being effectively developed in parallel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Someone might basically have the cooling unit,
Yeah.
another person might be obviously developing the system on the chip,
Mm-hmm.
so on and so
Mm-hmm.
forth. And then it comes together. And sometimes you have a cooling system that might deliver more than you need, if you know what I mean. And then at that point, it's too late. You spent the money. You got your bill of materials, and out it goes. But over time, you've learned those lessons, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
and then something will change.
Yeah.
And it's going to be about your bottom line, isn't it? At the end of the day, this is what drives these companies.
Yeah. But it's just again, they could have, rather than wasting Digital Foundry's time and Gamers Nexus's time and everyone else's time and all the speculation that was out there, unless they wanted some speculation for the marketing PR angle, maybe.
Yeah, why wouldn't they want that? Yeah, that's the question. And as to wasting any YouTuber or website or the media or a journalist's time, that sort of stuff basically generates kind of revenue for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't think they've done badly out of it. It's just how they're working. I'm not surprised at the radio silence.
Mm-hmm.
They're just letting people talk about the console
Mm-hmm.
as much as they want to. They're not stepping in.
Yeah.
Now moving on, Bluepoint, makers of the new Demon Souls remake for PS5, have finally joined PlayStation Studios.
Mm.
Not big news. It was leaked some time ago. Yeah, that this was happening, and to be honest, again, this is in keeping with Sony's track record. They tend to acquire studios who they have a long-term relationship with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who also you have delivered quality for them. They've recently also, bought Housemarque, who did Returnal, who they also had a long relationship with. This is, true to form. So no real surprises here. But I'm glad they finally did it and got it out of the way. And again, very little fanfare. There just seemed to be a blog post. That was it. Low key as you like.
Yeah.
The new system software's come out, and it's a good one. Obviously you've got that external SSD support, improved trophies, 3D audio for the television speakers, a small performance boost actually. It gives you a few frames extra, but they're yet to support anything like VRR, variable refresh rates, or HDMI 2.1. But it's improving. It's improving. I mean, but again, if you ask me, no surprise, because anybody who had seen the PS3's initial system software and UI, it was, in my view, kind of chalk and cheese in terms of kind of functionality towards the end.
Yeah.
There's also the regular rumors and speculation around the PlayStation 5's hardware. For example, shared cache, whether it uses a shared cache architecture. But I have to say, who cares? I mean, that's the reality of it. I mean, yes, it might use a shared cache. Yes, it might have stripped out pieces of the system on a chip. But it's a piece of hardware geared to play games. It doesn't really care about anything that doesn't help it do that, if you like.
Yeah.
And to be honest, both the Xbox Series X and PS5 are similarly spec'd and have similar levels of performance. Xbox has more CUs, PS5 has higher clock speed, and the outcome is it looks exactly the same. Games are running. It's very, very similar. End of story, really.
Yeah, we need more AAA titles on both, right? For Digital Foundry to do comparisons on. That will push it up.
Yeah, but even having said that, you'll get Sony with their AAA titles and Microsoft with their AAA titles. It's not like a apples to apples comparison, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, games will win the day.
Indeed.
Thankfully, there's no new abandoned news. So for me, that's good news. Very good news. Whether it be a Silent Hill reboot, whether that app they brought out actually kind of has any value on longer term, don't know.
Yeah. Did I see them push some more VR adverts as well? I think I saw some additional things. I know we caught up on one of those, kind of one of the showcase things that we did. We kind of watched together at, but I think afterwards I saw some things around VR as well that they published out. It was only VR 1 though; it wasn't VR. The second VR.
Yeah, I mean they do push out VR games now and again. I haven't seen, let's say, this VR advert per se, but they're still supporting the Verse VR headset. That's for sure. Segueing into this showcase, the Sony showcase of 2021. As you said, Al, you, I, and Jay, we kind of watched it together. I did record our reactions. I haven't actually posted any of that stuff. What I may do is post it at the same time we publish the next Neutral Lounge. Be interesting for maybe people to see how our reactions differ, from what we're going to be speaking about now. My thoughts on the whole kind of showcase have adjusted slightly.
Ooh, interesting.
Adjusted slightly, yeah. And I've watched it again a couple of times. But yeah, I mean, let's roll into that. So the Sony Showcase 2021, how it started was actually quite strange. And I think we were all sitting there. Obviously, the video started kicking off, and we sat there. We looked at it. And goes, well, what's this? Yeah. And at one point, I did murmur, "Is this an advert?" And lo and behold, it was. It was an advert.
A compilation of showcase items, I think, or at least it's very small items of each, I think.
No, it was the actual advert with chess as its centerpiece, if you remember it. It was a live advert with actors, real actors and actresses, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And quite a decent soundtrack, actually, if I'm being honest, when I saw it again. Again, a strange way to start a showcase. Yeah, but I'm gonna create a bit of speculation, and I'm wondering if they're trying to send us a message. And I'll get into that at the tail end of this. Hence, I said, are Sony playing chess, 4D chess? Literally, I mean literally. It just got me thinking. But moving on from that, because we'll go back to that later. We'll go back about what I mean about 4D chess at the tail end of this.
Yeah.
We had the KOTOR remake, obviously, and I must admit I was definitely very excited to see that, because I think KOTOR's long needed a remake.
Yeah.
It's a definite message by Sony, because they're getting stuff like obviously KOTOR on PlayStation, and they've got a degree of console exclusivity.
Yeah.
For it.
Yeah.
As we know, it's synonymous with Xbox, or has been. Certainly on console. So it's definitely something I'm looking forward to. I mean, if they can get to Demon Souls levels of excellence in terms of the remake or the reboot, or however it ends up, then it's certainly something we can look forward to. Because obviously KOTOR hasn't exactly aged that well.
Well, we've got a remake later, which I'll touch on as well.
Yeah, exactly. But again, also coming out on PC. Yeah, also coming out on PC. The next game they showcased, Project Eve. When I set eyes on this, I was actually a little bit confused initially. I don't know how you felt about this particular game, Al, but I actually thought it was Bayonetta, or a Bayonetta game.
It was like a mix, right? Because it felt like Bayonetta. It felt like a kind of a more classic JRPG as well. There was kind of a mix of styles in there, but it was definitely the speed angle to it. So yeah, it was interesting. It felt like parts of other franchises, but I think it's a new IP. So
yeah, definitely a new IP with some influences from Bayonetta.
Yeah,
definitely in some of the combat. Certainly in the way the actual main character was also styled.
Yeah,
I would say.
Yeah.
I would say originally I actually wondered if this had any connection to Parasite Eve, which is an old, I believe, PS2 game. But I don't think that's the case. Looking back on Parasite Eve, I think I was wrong in that with that guess. But you know what? I'm actually excited for this game, having kind of seen the kind of showcase a couple times. There was actually lots of gameplay in that video.
Yeah.
So definitely a game to look out for, especially as I love Devil May Cry.
Yeah.
Love the old God of War games. Certainly, like Bayonetta a lot. This could be something to look out for, and if it does have some JRPG sensibilities, then that could also give it a bit of depth.
Yeah.
Now the next game they showed off, Tiny Tina's Wonderland. Tiny Tina's Wonderland, and we've both played Borderlands recently, and a damn fine shooter. Yeah, really good fun. And my thoughts with this is, why am I so interested in this? Yeah, because really, you could argue, look, it's just Borderlands in a different setting, right?
Yeah. And actually, would you even play it on a console?
No, I'd probably get it on the PC. But
yeah.
it's coming out on the PC anyway. It's definitely a PC game.
Yeah.
But my thinking was, why am I so interested in this game? And then I realised, because it kind of reminds me of Hexen and Heretic. Those old classic FPS games, set in a Dungeons and Dragons style kind of like universe. So I might actually just get this one for the PC.
Do you have any idea when the release date is? Is it one of these ones that we could kind of do over Christmas or something?
I think so. I think it's quite soon.
Interesting.
I might be wrong. I didn't really keep track of the release dates for this one, but I think it's a this year thing. Hope I'm not wrong. And then we got more information and a glimpse of Forspoken. Yeah, from I believe Square Enix. And again, we're seeing a lot of female protagonists of late. Another one to add to the list.
Yeah.
For me, it looks good, and interesting. Has a pretty much a parkour flavor. Obviously, seems to have a combat system where magic is used quite heavily. Looking at the kind of gameplay footage, But again, this is one of these games that reminded me of something in the past. And that game was Primal. I don't know if you've ever encountered it. It's, again, an old PlayStation 2 game with a female lead character. And I just got this vibe, from it. And, going down the list, obviously, Ghostwire Tokyo looked interesting. I'm going to want to play that. Guardians of the Galaxy. I actually think looks decent. Yeah, and I think it's been unfairly treated somewhat because of the reception that Marvel Avengers had. Don't know if you've been following Marvel Avengers out.
The latest game that was on there, yeah, no, I know there was performance issues and all sorts of issues with it, so...
There is a lot of negativity around that game. To a degree, I think some of that negativity has just kind of migrated over to the Guardians of the Galaxy, rightly or wrongly. You know what I mean? And I don't think it's getting a fair shake of the stick. That's the sense I have here.
Yeah, I'd imagine it's following a very different genre format to an extent. I mean, yeah, the characters are in the same universe to an extent, but still, the gameplay must be quite different, I would assume.
I don't really know, actually. I mean, it looks familiar. I don't think the gameplay was ever kind of what I'd call terrible in Marvel Avengers. The thing with Marvel Avengers, it basically not quite reimagined, but all the characters like Thor, Iron Man, Captain America look different from the characters in the films.
Yeah, but they have to, because it's
absolutely they have to, right? But I think that is also one of the problems with that the game has.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, well, I guess it's a combination of things. It depends on what Disney actually had in terms of that license to begin with when they signed up the actors. They should have thought about these other additional things,
Yeah, well, clearly they didn't.
Although luckily, I would say that quite a few of the cast, they've got a mask of some sort, so then those ones don't matter, right? So
yeah, that's very true. But I mean, Tony Stark will take his helmet off in cutscenes, right?
but it doesn't matter then.
Yeah. Moving on, Deathloop made a showing, and obviously that game's got some really decent review scores. I think it's an 85 on Metacritic last time I checked.
Yeah. Scored very highly for sure.
Yes, definitely scored very highly. So, at some point I think I'll drop into that. I'll probably wait for the price to come down somewhat. I'm not desperate to play the game.
Yeah.
And then we had, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Techgia. I think that's how you pronounce it. And apologies if I've got it wrong. But it's a game inspired by New Caledonia. And New Caledonia is a French tale of a crossover as well. I don't know.
I don't know. I think people would like the idea of a remote island at this point.
No, that's also very true. Also very, very true. And really, to round off some of the, what I'd call the third-party game showing, we had Vampire the Masquerade's Blood Hunt, some sort of multiplayer game set in the same universe. Rainbow Six Extraction, which I think it looks, interesting enough. It kind of reminded me a little bit of XCOM. We had Alan Wake's Remastered. Grand Theft Auto 5 for the PS5, which looked exactly the same as the one on the PS4.
Yep.
Uncharted and I believe the Lost Legacy for PS5 and PC. And again, didn't really look that different, if I'm being honest. And then this thing called Kid Amnesia Exhibition, which just seems to be some sort of collaboration between Radiohead, the band, and Epic Games. No idea what it is. But the fact that, Radiohead is collaborating with Epic Games is quite interesting.
Yeah.
And then, in a move that I've never seen Sony do, they had separated first-party games under the PS Studios banner, and maybe even second-party, from third-party.
Yeah.
And they sectioned that off. And obviously, we saw Wolverine, which I'm hoping is going to be, and we've heard is going to be a bit more mature. Maybe, who knows, it might be rated R. That's coming from Insomniac. There's no release year, so you can imagine it quite late on, because the next Spider-Man's coming in, I believe, in 2023.
Yeah.
I just understand it. But I think people should keep in mind that Insomniac can do dark and mature. Because if you played Resistance 3, now that was a very dark game. In my humble opinion, probably the best out of the three, the best Resistance game out of the three.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had GT7,
Yeah.
looking super clean and sterile in kind of a good way.
Yeah.
It's a sim after all. Obviously, we've had one whole generation of consoles without a full GT. I mean, sport was focused more on multiplayer.
Yeah.
But, Gran Turismo's sim mode makes a comeback for GT7. So not much I can say about that. It looks crisp.
And I think the main thing I got out of that was the date. I think they've confirmed the date on it. So
that's right. There is a date. When is it? Is it early next year?
It's Feb. I think they had it
Yeah,
on.
that's right. That's right. There's a lot of good stuff coming out in Feb.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the few games that I would, that would push me to go and try and get myself a PS5. So, no doubt I'll be keeping an eye on some, but I'll wait. I can wait a bit longer.
Yeah, go for it, Al. Remember the new revision of the PlayStation. No issues, man. You're safe. You're safe. They also showed off Spider-Man 2. It was apparently in-game footage, obviously a render done by the in-game engine.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's obviously speculation that it could be a co-op game, because obviously we saw Miles Morales and Peter Parker fighting together, and it looks like Peter Parker Spider-Man also has some new powers, if you like. Yeah, some new powers. He had those mechanical, limbs.
Yeah, there was
spider limbs. Yeah, very much like the film.
Yeah.
Like the Avengers film. They also had Venom in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But interestingly, I don't think, and people don't think, that Venom's the main villain in the game.
Yeah, I think even in the movies, Venom was almost a side portion of it. There's typically another one. Although I think when I remember back to the films, I think they overdid it by having too many kind of like bad guys in on certain ones.
I think they were saying actually it's going to be Kraven the Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
Villain in it, if you like. So, that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah.
Once Spider-Man 2 was done, we also got a glimpse of God of War Ragnarok, the sequel to the 2018 God of War game.
Yeah.
So we saw, a teen version of Atreus. What I observed is a lot more density in some of the scenes and detail.
Mm-hmm.
I think I also observed what could be a more expansive level design.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think there's a scene in it when Kratos, I think he's up high somewhere, he just starts looking out over the scene.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking that's their way of teasing a larger open environment. But I actually do think expectations are a bit too high for God of War. I mean, that's the other problem. Because God of War was just one of the best looking games of last generation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That game, you can envision that game running on a PS5, let's say, as an earlier game, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe in a bump up of resolution or frame rate. But if that was running on a PS5, you kind of be okay with it. You go, yeah. So I think expectations are a bit too high. And even when I kind of first saw the video footage, I kind of thought to myself, it doesn't look that different.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But that's partly because the
last one was so good.
Yeah, definitely. I observed what I think increased density in detail.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. We will see.
Yeah.
I'm still expecting to be kind of wowed, but right now I'm just kind of holding back my excitement for it. You know what I mean? I kind of want to see a little bit more.
Yeah.
And maybe not part of the main meat of the actual showcase, but Cory Barlog, who was the last director of God of War, effectively teased that Santa Monica were also working on something else. He didn't say it in so many words, but he pretty much said it. So that was interesting. But obviously we had no information. Given all of that, and given that I'd now seen it a few times, I think I originally gave it a 7, if I remember.
Yeah.
I later said 6.5 because I really wasn't that... I just didn't feel excited enough.
Yeah.
I didn't feel that they had, let's say, that mic drop moment, or they talked enough about what they were going to do, the services.
Yeah.
or they didn't say that, yeah, by the way, welcome Blue Point to the PlayStation Studios family. They didn't do any of
Yeah.
that. So I said, yeah, really, in reality, in terms of excitement and that sort of thing, 6.5.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But now I'm thinking I'm going to revise my score.
Yeah. Go for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
7.5. Not a lot more. Not a lot more. But what I will say is that the majority of games they showed in the showcase are games I'm actually interested in playing. And a few of them I'm very excited
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of thinking to myself, well, what exactly am I complaining about? If you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Isn't it all about the games? I mean, there was a handful of stuff that I didn't care about, and I kind of summarised it as Vampire the Masquerade, Rainbow Six Extraction, Alan Wake, Grand Theft Auto 5, and Uncharted 4.
Yeah. I mean, I think when I rated it, I did it in reverse. I was like, how was the showcase overall? I gave it a 6 or something because I thought they could have done
Yeah,
more as an overall showcase. And
yeah,
then, actually, I was probably on the more excited end in comparison to you and Jay because, I've been a long fan of GT, and that would be a reason for me to go get the PS5. So, I'm
yeah,
much higher
yeah,
up the excitement scale.
yeah. I do think part of this is really how kind of Sony, are doing business these days.
Mm-hmm.
It literally seems to be all about games, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Some of their studio acquisitions, they're saying very little about, as in like publicly during a showcase via video feed.
Mm-hmm.
They're literally posting a blog post on it.
Yeah.
Sony are doing things a little bit differently in terms of their announcements and marketing, I think.
Yeah. And I guess the world has changed, obviously, now with the way that companies can push their own information out rather than relying on other media outlets, right? They can literally do it themselves on Twitter. They can do it themselves on various platforms, right? So,
No, I agree. I agree. There's an element of that. They're kind of assuming a lot more control over that.
mm.
But yeah, I mean, I'll kind of reiterate. I mean, I think it was a 7.5. It wasn't really amongst the best I've seen from them,
Yeah.
but I just can't ignore the fact that the amount of games they showed that I was interested in was high.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't 50-50. It was more like a 70-30 or an
Yeah.
80-20 sort of split.
One thing that would have pushed it up, another 10%, I think, on each, or another grating on each, I think would have been just a bit more on Horizon. Just a bit more on Horizon would have been great, but they missed. They didn't have anything, or at least they didn't show anything anyway.
Yeah, it's like how much airtime can you kind of give some of these games? I mean, that's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the Xbox and the New Horizon suffer a little bit of that because they're continuously showing their offers, and as good as that is, I know it's great, but that's like they're dedicating a lot of airtime to that.
It's a system seller. I think that's the thing.
Yeah, true, and I think it's the same for kind of to a degree. I think the same for GT7.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, can't argue that. Definitely been shown off quite a bit, and that leads us nicely out to start talking about Sony's kind of overall strategy. Yeah. Now I've said, are Sony playing 4D chess? Tongue in cheek, really. If I speak upon what they've done, I think quite quietly. I mean, obviously there's been news around it, but it's not as if it's the type of kind of reaction that, let's say, Microsoft got with the ZeniMax Bethesda acquisition. So basically, they brought Evo, which is the fighting games competition.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're investing heavily into cross media. For instance, Last of Us, the Last of Us TV series,
Yeah.
an Uncharted film,
Yeah.
and a Twisted Metal TV series, I believe, with some A-listers in these programs or films.
Yeah.
They have made investments in companies like Discord
Yeah.
and Epic, and we can expect Discord integration on the PS5 in the not too distant future. Actually, they've already said this.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Yeah.
They bought Housemarque after Returnal came out. They finally bought Bluepoint, who have also said they're doing an original game. And in the background, they've also bought Nexus, who are known for doing ports, primarily
Mm-hmm.
to PC, but they've actually also done ports between different consoles.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They've got Firesprite, they've just bought them, who had done Astro's Playroom and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the VR variant of that.
Yeah.
And they're funding or investing in Jade Raymond, who obviously had worked on Assassin's Creed and ex-Ubisoft,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously ex-Google now, ex-Stadia, in her new studio in Montreal, Canada, Haven
Mm-hmm.
Entertainment. They're also investing in Deviation Games, whose CEO Dave Ante and director Jason Blundell were ex-Call of Duty devs at
Mm-hmm.
Treyarch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Treyarch.
Yeah. Yeah.
It sounds like they're working on some sort of multiplayer game for Sony. And then you've got the Destruction All-Stars dev, Lucid, now working on a new Twisted Metal game.
Mm-hmm.
And generally speaking, Sony seem to be also investing in locking down IP
Mm-hmm.
rather than buying outright studios. For instance, what they've
Yeah.
done with Square Enix, as an
Mm-hmm.
example.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you look at it, Microsoft has 23 studios versus Sony 17, including Bluepoint, the newest acquisition. But Sony are just doing lots of these little things around the edges, if you know what I mean. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if the net effect's going to be the same or not,
Mm-hmm.
because they can't front up the money for someone like ZeniMax or Bethesda. They don't have the money
Mm-hmm.
for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you got this email, Al, but I got an email about PlayStation trials.
Trials.
I don't
Don't
think
think so.
everybody got
Yeah.
it.
Mm-hmm.
At the moment, it itself is literally a trial. It's another piece of A/B testing.
Mm-hmm.
And literally, you can download the newest Death Stranding Director's Cut, and I think the newest Sackboy game,
Mm-hmm.
and you can play them for a limited number of hours,
Mm-hmm.
free.
On PlayStation 5 on.
Yeah, it will be PlayStation 5
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
at no extra cost, obviously. I don't think it's tied into PlayStation, Plus.
Mm-hmm.
You just get to sample it for, I think it's between 4 to 6 hours.
Okay.
So that's quite
But-
interesting.
I mean, that just sounds like a demo, unless it was some special thing. I mean, it sounds like a demo to me.
You could call it a demo, but it's not a demo because I think it's the full game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what they're trying to trial necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, people are saying, is this something they're looking at because of Game Pass?
Mm-hmm.
Because if it goes well and someone likes the game, what is that going to lead to? It's going to lead into a software sale.
Mm-hmm.
And they would have given somebody, let's say, 6 hours of game time, which for a 20-hour game is not insignificant.
Mm.
It's an interesting way of delivering something that seemingly looks free, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but if it's not tied to PSN Plus or some kind of subscription, then I don't know how they're actually. It just feels like demos and trial versions of games should have been available before. But anyway,
They're trying to drive sales.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not quite a demo. Because usually with a demo, you get maybe kind of one level, and you never usually get anything for 6 hours, if you know what I mean, or 4 to 6
Yeah,
hours. So it's something a little bit more than that. But it's going to be interesting to see what the outcome of that is. And we also heard they were trialing this PlayStation specific video service out in Poland.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all these little things they're doing around the edges. And I'm wondering, is one day in the future, right? All of that's going to come together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
One Sony.
yeah, I'll be surprised if a lot of this, especially the cross-media stuff, isn't being driven by the One Shot Sony initiative. You know what I mean?
It would make the most sense, right? You should
Yeah, of
be
course.
able to, if you've got a good Netflix series, a good movie, you get sales in various other things related to it. Literally a whole IP set that should almost like carry
Correct.
itself.
Correct. I mean, you correct. I mean, and you use whatever strengths you have and whatever expertise you have. And I think that's what they're going to be leveraging going forward. It would not surprise me if some of the PlayStation's biggest IP, end up in this whole film, television series, game, double or triple kind of threat, format, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It would not really surprise me. And the other thing I've got to mention is that There's rumours of a potential partnership between them and Netflix as well. So there's all these things happening around the fringes. And I think by themselves, it sounds really unexciting. When I say small in comparison to what Microsoft have been doing. But when you look at it in its entirety, and let's say they manage to basically stitch all these separate parts together.
Yeah. Yeah.
That could be quite interesting.
Mm.
That could be quite interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I guess joining up forces with Netflix is an interesting one, because if you argue the thing that we're not talking about is Amazon Prime and the stuff that they're pushing there, which is, video, gaming services as well, which is starting to squeeze those other areas as well. So Netflix partnering with Sony makes a lot of sense. And actually, they're starting to build things. New World, I think it's just started to come out.
Yeah.
It seems quite popular. It's still a bit clunky, but I had a few release issues. It got queuing issues right now, I think, is the problem. So people can't get onto the games. But it's a threat, right? So, Netflix is getting squeezed by Prime Video. I'm sure the other kind of gaming services will get squeezed by Amazon, especially with its size. It makes sense that Sony and Netflix would partner up.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I mean, Amazon could be a superpower going forward. That's the reality of them. And one thing I didn't mention, I think Sony has acquired this company called Crunchyroll.
Oh, Crunchyroll, that's for the anime.
Yeah, the anime side of things.
But I think that's because was Netflix already working with them? I can't remember which, but Amazon are also doing anime as well now. Basically, Crunchyroll was the main sort of anime streaming service to the sort of English-speaking market. They were getting squeezed by Netflix already.
And a partnership from a gaming perspective also makes sense to me, because they've got a load of gaming-related anime on Netflix.
Yep. I was going to say, what was it? I think it was on Netflix as well. There's a reverse kind of thing where basically there was a Dota anime that went onto Netflix. Yeah. There was I never got to watch it because I've not got a Netflix subscription, but I heard it was okay.
The Castlevania stuff is meant to be kind of quite well respected as well. I mean, if you could imagine, right, Sony doing things that speak to gamers, maybe even non-gamers, putting into kind of like a one service like this, having Netflix, maybe Netflix are the company who can do the streaming part of things for Sony, rather than Sony having to kind of go out and build their own infra, which we know is frighteningly expensive. I think that would be a good way to go, if you ask me.
It'd be a very powerful partnership.
Yeah,
for sure.
No need to buy the cow, but just kind of have these kind of partnerships, like you're saying, that, because let's be honest. I mean, Sony are never going to be another Microsoft. They're never going to be another Google. They don't have the money for that sort of thing.
Yeah, and these giants, these Amazons, will grow and grow and squeeze you. So it's probably better to work together on these sorts of things.
Yeah, correct. But that's what I feel that Sony are up to, and they're being very quiet. I think this generation, I think they've gone with the perspective is, go ahead and talk about us. We're not going to block you. Go ahead and talk about us. Yeah, we're going to keep super silent. Like it or loathe it, that's the approach they've taken. So, what's happened recently, some of the communication doesn't really surprise me. I just do wonder behind the scenes what they're up to. They've got so many little moving parts at the moment. Yeah, I'm wondering if there's a coherent strategy around these different moving parts at all. I'm seeing a pattern, certainly with the game side of things. I'm seeing a little bit of a pattern developing with the cross-media. I'm seeing a tiny bit of it with the video content. I haven't got a Phileas Fogg why they bought Evo. But I will say that PlayStation these days is synonymous with fighting games, more so than any console.
Yeah.
So I can understand that. But then, does that play into the cross-media piece? Whereby, competitive kind of online play, televised. It's an interesting future. Now me talking out loud and thinking out loud, they're literally not taking the same path as Microsoft. Nothing they're doing at the moment says they are, if I'm being honest.
and this is why it's interesting where we talk about them. Are they going to, who's going to win a console war? It almost doesn't even matter, because if they're going for different strategies, then actually it doesn't matter.
You might not even be sitting on the same battlefield. I mean, what exactly are you trying to win? And Al, I think with that said, us speculating whether Sony is playing 4D chess or not, and whether they even care about being on a chessboard or having any pieces on there, I
Yeah.
think it's time to talk about the next topic.